I never thought the sound of a heart monitor could be louder than a broken heart. But that night, it was. Each beep felt like a countdown, not to my death, but to theirs. Hospitals smell like bleach and fear. The air is cold, the walls are too white, and every light hums like a secret it can't tell. I stared at the ceiling and thought about how many people have taken their last breath looking at the same cracks. Maybe tonight would be mine. I was 62, and I had stopped pretending that age was just a number. It was a ledger. Every wrinkle, a cost. Every scar, an unpaid debt. And I was still paying. The doctor said the surgery was minor. A simple valve repair, he said. But I knew better. Nothing in this world is simple when money is involved, especially when you're worth something dead. My son came earlier that day. He wore a perfect smile and brought flowers that still had the store tag on them. He stood by my bed and called me Mom, like it was a habit, not a feeling. Behind him, his wife scrolled through her phone, pretending to care. "Don't worry, Mom," he said, squeezing my hand just enough for the nurse to notice. "You'll be fine. We'll take care of everything." I believed the first sentence. The second was a lie. When they left, the room fell silent again. Only the hum of the machines kept me company. I closed my eyes, but sleep never came. It never does when your instincts are louder than your pulse. Around midnight, I heard them. Faint voices outside the door. I knew those voices. I had raised one of them. "She'll be gone by morning," my daughter-in-law whispered. The lawyer said everything transfers automatically. My son laughed softly. "Finally, we can sell the house. No more pretending." The monitor beside me betrayed me. A sudden spike, a shrill beep. I froze. The sound cut through the corridor, and they went quiet. Their shadows shifted under the door. Then footsteps faded away. I stared at the ceiling again, and this time I smiled. It wasn't madness. It was clarity. They thought they were preparing for my death. They had no idea I'd been planning their downfall for months. When the nurse came in, she saw my tears. "Are you in pain, Mrs. Hale?" she asked gently. "Not the kind that medicine helps," I said. She nodded, then hesitated. "Dr. Allen will check on you before sunrise. He requested it personally." That name hit like thunder. Dr. Allen. I hadn't heard it in 30 years, not since the day he stood at my husband's funeral, took my hand, and whispered, "You'll never be alone, Grace." I thought he was lying. Maybe he wasn't. When he walked in just before dawn, he looked older, calmer, but his eyes, those sharp, blue-gray eyes, still carried the weight of promises kept. "You look stronger than your chart says," he smiled. "I always was," I replied. He checked the monitors, then leaned closer. "Your son and his wife came to see me earlier. Wanted details about your condition. Too many details." I didn't flinch. "They're impatient," I said quietly. He looked at me, really looked at me. "I've seen this before," he said. "Families who come for inheritance before the funeral." "Then you know what I'm going to do," I said. He sighed. "Yes, you'll handle it quietly, just like you always do." And then, he added softly, "You have my help." That was all I needed. I waited until the morning sun sliced through the blinds, painting gold stripes across my bed. Then I took out a small notebook from my drawer, my little black record of truth. Inside were dates, numbers, signatures, names, everything they didn't know I had changed. 2 months ago, I rewrote my will. Everything went to charity, under one condition, that I be declared dead. And that part, I could make happen. When you've been a mother long enough, you learn to fake things, smiles, forgiveness, even death. At 8 a.m., the anesthesiologist came in with calm eyes and soft hands. "Ready, Mrs. Hale?" I nodded. "Just make sure I wake up when it's over," I said. She smiled faintly. "You will." But I wasn't so sure, and that was the plan. They rolled me toward the operating room. The ceiling lights passed above me one by one, like white moons floating down a dark river. I counted them, not to calm myself, but to mark time. Every second mattered. Every breath was part of the act. When the anesthesia crept into my veins, I whispered the words that would seal my revenge. "Let them think I'm gone." When I woke up, I didn't open my eyes right away. I listened first. It's something you learn when life has taught you that people act differently when they think you can't hear them. The air was still, colder than before. Somewhere close, a machine hummed softly. I could smell antiseptic and the faint trace of perfume. Not mine. And then I heard her voice. Low, careful, trembling with forced sadness. "Is it confirmed?" my daughter-in-law whispered. The nurse hesitated. "The doctor will speak to you shortly." Silence. Then a shaky breath, half a sob, half relief. "She's really gone?" My son's voice came next. Quiet, almost rehearsed. "Don't cry here. We'll handle the papers first." Papers, not prayers. The words slid into me like a needle. I stayed still, breathing shallowly. They thought I was dead. Perfect. I had arranged everything. Dr. Allen knew exactly what to do. The anesthetic dose, the slowed heart rate, the temporary flatline, enough to fool the monitors for a few minutes, enough for them to sign what needed signing. The nurse's voice broke through again. She left something in her personal drawer. "Should I give it to you?" My son said, "Yes." I could picture it. His greedy fingers unfolding the letter. The one that began, "To my loving son, may you finally learn the cost of silence." I had written it weeks ago, sealed it with calm hands. It wasn't a will. It was a mirror. Every line reflected what they'd become. And at the bottom, I had written only 2 words. No inheritance. The sound of paper crumpling made me smile inside. Then my daughter-in-law hissed, "We'll contest it. There has to be another copy." "There isn't," he snapped. "She wouldn't do this." "But she did," she said. "And you know why? Because you never called her." That silence. It was worth every year of pain I'd endured. Footsteps moved away. The door clicked shut. I waited. Minutes passed. Then another sound. Slow, deliberate footsteps, heavier, more certain. "Grace?" a quiet voice said. I opened my eyes. Dr. Allen stood over me, eyes steady. "They've signed the declaration," he said softly. "You're officially dead." I smiled faintly. "Then let's see what the living do next." He helped me sit up. Every movement hurt, but the pain felt earned, like payment after a long, thankless job. "They'll move fast," he said. "You should leave the hospital before noon." "I already have a plan," I said. "There's a place outside the city. Quiet, private." He nodded. "And the will? It's done. Everything goes to the foundation, in your name. For the children's hospital we once dreamed of building." He hesitated. They'll come after me. They'll try, I said, but greed has no patience. They'll destroy themselves before they reach you. He exhaled slowly, a mix of admiration and fear. You always were dangerous when quiet, he murmured. By midday, I was gone. A nurse wheeled me through a side corridor, wrapped in a pale blue blanket, face hidden under a surgical mask. No one looked twice. Hospitals see too many ghosts to count one more. Outside, the air hit me, sharp, real, alive. The city buzzed in the distance, unaware that I had just escaped my own funeral. I checked into a small apartment near the river. Nothing fancy, just walls, warmth, and windows that didn't judge. Dr. Allen sent updates through a prepaid phone. Each message was short. They sold the car. They emptied the savings. They listed your house for sale. Every sentence was proof that I had been right all along. They didn't mourn me. They used me. Weeks passed. I healed slowly, both body and heart. And with each day that I stayed gone, the world began to whisper my absence louder. One afternoon, a letter arrived at my temporary address. No return name, but I recognized the handwriting. Dr. Allen's. Inside was a single photo. My son and his wife, standing in front of the house I built, holding a for sale sign, smiling. The caption beneath, their new life announcement. And below the photo, a note from Allen. They moved too fast. The papers haven't cleared. The property still belongs to you. I laughed, quietly, bitterly. Of course they had rushed. People who live off others' labor never learn patience. That night I walked to the riverbank, with my coat pulled tight around me. The city lights shimmered on the water, and I felt something inside me shift. Not sadness, not anger, something colder. Peace. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like someone's mother or someone's burden. I felt like myself, and that was enough. But revenge, when it's real, never ends with peace. It waits, it observes, it strikes when the laughter sounds too comfortable. So I waited, and when the day came, when they threw their party in the house they thought was theirs, I was already watching. They buried me on a Friday. At least, that's what the newspaper said. Grace Hale, beloved mother and philanthropist, passed away peacefully. Peacefully. I almost laughed when I read it. There was no body, only a closed casket and a photograph. The church was full of people who hadn't called me in years. Some came for curiosity, others for guilt, but most came for appearances. And in the front row sat my son and his wife, dressed in perfect black, playing their parts like professionals. I watched from the car across the street. The tinted window hid my face, but I saw everything. The way she dabbed her dry eyes, the way he adjusted his tie, pretending to mourn. Beside them sat a lawyer, one I didn't recognize. Probably hers. She always had a plan. The service ended. People left with folded programs and empty hearts. My son stayed behind, his hands buried in his pockets, staring at the coffin. For a moment, I thought I saw something real in his face. Regret, ignorant maybe. But then his phone rang, and the moment died. That evening, they hosted what they called a celebration of life. In my house, the invitation said it was what she would have wanted. They were right, but not in the way they thought, because what I wanted was exactly what was happening. Everyone who ever pitied me, laughed at me, or ignored me gathered under my roof, raising glasses to a woman they'd all abandoned. Dr. Allen texted me. "It's happening," I replied. "Let them toast, then we'll begin." The sky was heavy with rain that night, the kind that waits before it falls. I walked the few blocks to my old home, hidden beneath an umbrella, wearing a dark coat and a calm smile. The whites were open, music spilling onto the street. They'd lit candles, played soft jazz, filled the rooms with laughter. Grief had become decoration. From the edge of the garden, I could see through the window. My son stood by the fireplace, drink in hand, telling stories about the mother he never truly knew. "She was strong," he said, voice full of practiced emotion. "She taught me everything," the crowd murmured in sympathy. His wife rested a hand on his arm, her diamond ring catching the light. Everything about them looked perfect on the surface. But perfection cracks easiest under heat, and tonight, the fire was mine to start. At exactly 8 p.m., the lawyer arrived. Not theirs. Mine. He was a quiet man in his 60s, gray suit, steady eyes. He waited until the room fell silent. "Good evening," he said. "I'm here to read a statement from Mrs. Grace Hale." My son frowned. "She's already gone." The lawyer smiled faintly. "Yes, but her words remain." He opened the envelope. My voice filled the room, recorded days before the surgery, calm, clear, cold. "To those who gathered tonight, thank you for coming. I hope the food is good. I paid for it, after all. If you're here because you loved me, know that I loved you back. If you're here because you think you've won, stay a little longer. There's something you should know." The room went still. Even from outside, I could feel the air tighten. Everything I owned, every house, account, and asset, has been donated to the Hale Foundation for children without families. You see, I learned something in this life. Blood isn't what makes you family. Kindness does. And some of you ran out of that long ago. Gasps. A glass shattered. Her voice, sharp, panicked. "She can't do that." "Oh, but I can," my voice continued. "Because while you were busy planning my death, I was planning my life. After you." The recording ended. The silence that followed was exquisite. My son stood frozen, pale, the glass slipping from his hand. His wife grabbed his arm. "Do something," she hissed. He whispered, "It's too late." The lawyer closed the file. "For legal clarity," he said, "Mrs. Hale is officially declared deceased. The foundation activation begins tomorrow morning." He paused. "The house will be vacated by next week." Someone muttered, "My God." Someone else said, "She outsmarted them." And me? I turned and walked away. The rain began to fall, soft at first, then heavier, washing the night clean. From behind, I heard shouting, the clatter of footsteps, the sound of glass breaking. Greed was eating them alive, and I didn't have to lift a finger. By the time I reached the street corner, I felt lighter than I had in decades. Revenge, when done right, isn't fire. It's ice. It freezes everything it touches, until only the truth remains. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat by the window of my rented apartment, watching the city lights flicker. Every drop of rain against the glass sounded like applause. I didn't need anyone to see me win. I only needed to know that I had. The city never sleeps, but it forgets fast. Within a week, the paper stopped printing my name. The story of the generous widow who left everything to charity was replaced by new tragedies, new scandals, new noise. And that was fine. That's how I wanted it. I had spent a lifetime being remembered by people who never really knew me. Now I was finally invisible. And for the first time, it felt like peace. Dr. Allen visited once after the reading. He brought coffee and news. "They're gone," he said. "Left the city 2 days ago. Your son tried to file an appeal, but the documents were ironclad." I nodded. "Good," I said quietly. Let him rest from pretending. He studied me for a long moment. "You could have confronted them, Grace. Faced them. Told them everything." I smiled. "What's the point?" "I didn't need them to understand. I needed them to lose." He laughed softly, shaking his head. "You've changed." "I had to," I said. "The woman they buried couldn't have done this." We sat in silence, watching rain slide down the window. Finally he asked, "What will you do now?" And I said the truth. "Disappear." He didn't argue. Maybe he knew that some endings don't need witnesses. That night I packed lightly. 1 suitcase, 1 photograph, 1 truth. I left the apartment key on the table and walked out into the rain. No one saw me. No one ever does when you move like a ghost. At the bus station, the clerk looked up as I handed her cash. "One-way ticket?" she asked. "Yes," I said. "To where?" "Anywhere that doesn't know my name." The bus smelled like metal and midnight. I took a seat near the window, pulled my coat tighter, and watched the city fade. Street lights blurred into gold ribbons. Skyscrapers turned into shadows. Behind me, an entire life was dissolving, not into regret, but freedom. I thought of my son one last time. I imagined him standing in an empty house, staring at the space where his trophies once hung. Maybe he'd remember my voice, or the taste of the soup I used to make. Maybe not. Either way, the silence I left behind would teach him more than my words ever did. For years, I believed love meant sacrifice, that motherhood meant giving until you disappeared. But love without respect is not love. It's servitude. And I had served long enough. As the bus rolled out of the city, dawn began to rise, thin and gray, like the start of a new story. I reached into my pocket and pulled out the old notebook, the one that had carried all my secrets. I flipped to the last page, uncapped the pen, and wrote, "Grace Hale, born, died, reborn." Then I closed it forever. Hours later, I stepped off the bus in a small town by the sea. The air smelled of salt and something like forgiveness. I found a cafe, ordered tea, and sat by the window. The world moved quietly outside, unaware of the woman who had just rewritten her ending. In the distance, children ran by the shore, laughing. Their voices carried through the glass, bright and alive. It didn't hurt anymore. It just reminded me that life goes on, with or without witnesses. A woman at the next table smiled at me. "First time here?" she asked. "Yes," I said. "Just passing through." "Well, you picked a good place to start over." I smiled back. "That's what I was hoping for." She laughed softly. "You look like someone who's been through a lot." "I have," I said. "But I made it out." When she left, I stayed for a while, watching the tide come in. The sea doesn't judge. It only takes what it's given and returns it softer. Maybe that's what healing is. learning to let go without needing applause. I finished my tea, left a tip, and stepped outside. The wind carried the scent of rain and new beginnings. I walked toward the horizon, no destination, no fear. Behind me was a name carved on a headstone that didn't belong to me. Ahead of me was everything that did. And that's how Grace Hale, the woman they buried, the mother they betrayed, vanished into legend. Not a ghost, not a victim, just a woman who learned that sometimes the sweetest revenge is living well and never looking back.